Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar. Before we start, it would be good to know if you can all hear me well, see me well. Can you please leave a message in the Q&A section? In the right upper corner you see a question mark and you can write your comment in there. Hi Sebastian, hi Carol, hi Jane, hi, nice to meet you all here. So some people are still coming in, but I'll already talk about what we are going to do. So my name is Annebet van Mameren. With my business New to NL, I help international families find a school for their children and I give advice about schools. Maybe most of you already know the Amsterdam School Lottery is coming up, and this only applies to children who were born between January 1st and April 30th in 2017 and who live in Amsterdam. So in case that's not you, then I'm not sure if this webinar is useful for you. But if you have any other questions, you can always ask them and we can talk about it later. Then we'll start the presentation. And I still see some people coming in, but that's okay. I will send you the recording afterwards. So if you've missed something, then you can always see it later. So I've called it your plan of attack because it's a whole procedure that you have to go through. And of course, at this moment with the corona situation, you cannot visit the schools. It's more difficult to really get a good impression that way. So I try to find a way to inform you better so you know how to make the best decision. So maybe you've already seen this website. It's the Schoolwijzer and it's especially made for Amsterdam. So every city has their own policy, and if you live in another place, then you have to look how the policy works there. When you see this page, it says English, but then still some things are in Dutch, but yeah, it's better than nothing, I think, because previously it was only in Dutch. And I'll explain how the procedure works. So they have divided the process into 5 steps. And we'll go through them one by one. And we start with start. So when you type in your address here and your child's date of birth, and then click on view schools, you'll get to see which schools are available in your area. And it's very important to know that you have priority for the 8 schools that are closest to your home address. When you click on the list, so this is the list that you get. So this is based on a postcode in Amsterdam South. You see that schools are marked in blue and they say priority schools. And this means that you have priority for 8 schools that are closest to your house. There are some other schools that are marked in gray saying own scheme. And those schools, they are the so-called eenpitter schools. The lottery of the eenpitter schools has already taken place. So that is for children who were born in 2017 between the 1st of January and the 30th of April. So unfortunately, you cannot apply for those schools anymore. So this is the central lottery. Deadline is the 3rd of June, and it only applies to the blue schools. So that's an important distinction to make. We'll talk a little bit about the eenpitter schools afterwards. But for now, you should focus on the blue schools only. These are schools that are either religious or they're based on the educational philosophy, like maybe Montessori or Dalton or Jennerplan or Waldorf. They're all funded by the government, but they can have their own school board. If you really want to understand how that works, then I'll refer you to another webinar I gave about the Dutch education system. We talk more in depth about the system itself. So now we're really going to focus on the application procedure. So here, these distances is the distance between your home and the school. So they are sorted by distance. So the closest one is on top. And then you can see here if they are Montessori, like in this case, or Dalton, like in this case, or Catholic, like in this case. So you get some more information on this page. When you click through, I'll show that later, then you can see also how that works. It's very good to know that most religious schools are not very religious anymore. So most of these schools have been founded a long time ago when religion was much more important than it is now, but it really varies per school. So if you're interested in a school that is called Catholic or Protestant or generic Christian, then it's always good to ask the principals, okay, what do you do in terms of religion? Most of those schools, they don't go to church, they don't pray, they don't say grace, but it really depends. So don't exclude them right away, but yeah, ask other parents maybe or the principal and see what they do and if you could agree with that or not. There's also a map on the same page, and then you can see again the blue schools, but then placed on a map so close to your house. So this mark is where you live, and then here are the schools around it. So some of the schools, they are maybe closer, but those are the Eenpitter schools, so they are not considered at this point. You can also mark a school as your favorite, so then you can keep track of them. So this is pretty useful to understand what are the available schools in your area. And it's good to know they're all funded by the government, so they are not the private schools. You cannot find them on the list. There are only a few private schools in Amsterdam, but if you're interested in them, you really have to look separately for them. So if you click on the name of the school, you'll get some more information. Unfortunately, the introduction of the school is in Dutch only. And then they have some additional information that is also in English. So what is very important is the judgment of the school inspection. And they go to the school every 4 years with a whole long checklist. And they really look at the results of the school, but also the maintenance of the building, the teacher turnover, the hygiene. So a lot of different things. And they allocate a traffic light system to the scores. So if it's green, then it's good. If they rate it as orange, then there are some issues. So then you really have to understand what's going on. If they are red, then there are some serious things going on. And in that case, it's really important to understand, okay, what's happening here? Is the school improving? Often when they are rated as red, they probably will have gotten a fine, or maybe they even risk to be closed. So that is really a very important thing to look out for. Some schools you will find they are marked in gray, and that means that usually in that case there has been research that has taken place among the school board, and they didn't pick this school as example school, so that doesn't mean much. Just that the report about the school you're looking at is a bit older in that case, but you can still get a good idea of it. And also about the board, how they're managing their schools, their financial situation, what the teachers say about those schools. So still it will give you some information. But yeah, it would be nicest if they just rank it green, then you know for sure that it's okay. Then here where it says average distance, that is the average distance of all current students between their house and the school. When it's a bigger distance, so in this case, 1.6 kilometers is pretty far. So that means that probably there's something special going on about this school. So maybe they have a specific philosophy, or they've focused on languages or technology, or so something is going on that parents are prepared to cycle further for. And it also tells you a bit about the atmosphere. So if all students live very close by, then it probably is really a neighborhood school. So if you live a bit further away, that can become a bit more of a hassle in terms of play dates or arranging things after school, or seeing classmates spontaneously. So all those things play a role. Of course, you don't only base your decision on that, but it's good to see where do most other children live. And this is the number of pupils this year at the school. So also that varies a lot. It really depends on what you're looking for. Do you prefer a small school or maybe a bigger school? The advantage of a smaller school is that it's usually more personal. All children know each other, all the children know all the other teachers. But on the other hand, the advantage of a bigger school is that a lot of teachers, they will specialize in specific areas like dyslexia or behavioral issues, or maybe learning Dutch as a non-native language. And then the teachers train each other in those subjects. So then you have a lot of in-house knowledge and expertise, and they don't need to buy in specialists in those areas. So it really depends on what you're looking for. And if you think your child might have some special needs, then it's always good to see if they can provide extra support in that area, because not all schools are equal in that respect. So first, the schools, they have to try and accommodate children who have some special needs. But if they really cannot support those children, then they might be referred to a special needs school. But it also depends on their previous experience and expertise, if they can help you better or not. So that's definitely a very important question to ask. Then another thing they provide on this website is the school link to a preschool program. Some parents think, oh, I have to send my child to this particular preschool because then they get priority at a connected primary school. Usually this is not the case, though. There are some exceptions, but that's especially the case with the eenpitter schools and not so much with the central schools. So they only give priority to children who have a VVE indication, and that is a sort of certificate that the consultatiebureau, the place where you go to get your vaccines. And if they think that a child is lacking language support, or if they are a bit delayed in terms of languages, maybe because the parents don't have a rich vocabulary, or maybe the child already speaks 2 or 3 languages at home and Dutch would be the 3rd or 4th one. Or when a child has a speech delay in their home language or languages. So those could be situations for the consultatiebureau to give you a VVE indication. Just the fact of not speaking Dutch at home is not a reason anymore to get this VVE indication. I know there's a lot of misunderstanding about this because it changed a couple of years ago, and some parents who were in that situation a few years ago, they still might tell you, oh, you can get a VVE indication and you can get a priority at a connected primary school, but this is not the case. In case you are in doubt, then just ask the school to make sure. But it still does have some advantages to attend the connected preschool, because a lot of children, they will go from the same preschool to the same primary school. So then they can go to the same school as their friends. They often work together, they use the same themes and methodology, so the children are already used to how the primary school works. But you're also free to go to any other primary school if you wish. In this section, you can see which are the affiliated preschools. Step 3 is that you have to apply. On the next slide, I will show you how the application form looks like. In most cases, you should have received the application form at home around age 2.5. If you have moved to Amsterdam later, then probably you have missed out on this form. That's okay, you can find it on the website as well. So that is the official form that you have to use. And so like I said, if your child is born between the 1st of January and the 30th of April 2017, then your deadline is the 3rd of June. It doesn't matter if you sent in a form now or 2 months ago, or the day of the deadline, you have equal chance of getting a place. So that doesn't matter. A lot of schools, they are oversubscribed, so they get more applications that they can offer a place, and then a lottery takes place. So when you hand in your application form, the school of your first preference, they will put all your details in the system, and they will send you a confirmation. So you really have to check if you received that. If not, then probably something is wrong with your email address. And then you should contact the school directly, so where you handed the form. And a random computer system allocates the places to the children. So it's not the school that decides that, it's the computer system that, that randomly assigns the places. And then they give priority to siblings. So if you have an older child who already goes to the same school, then your younger children can attend that school as well. Then they give priority to children who went to the affiliated preschool with a VVE indication. That's very important. Then the children of the staff members of that school. And then they look at the school, if it's one of your 8 priority schools or not. And finally, they look at the other schools. So this means that you can list a school where you don't have priority for, but all the other children who live closer by the school, they go first. So if it's a very popular school that only has a few places to give away, then your chances are very low. So that is also an important thing to notice. You shouldn't list a school on the form that you don't like, because maybe you end up there and that won't make you happy. So if you don't know which school to apply for, and it's very important to rank at least 5 schools in order of your preference. So if you cannot come up with 5 schools, then it's better to pick a school that you like outside of your area rather than putting a school on your list that you don't like. But you, at the same time, have to realize that your chances will be very small that you will end up at the school that is outside of your priority area. You have equal priority for the 8 schools that are closest to your house, so that are marked in blue. So it doesn't matter if it's the closest or number 8 school on your list, your priority is the same. So that is another important thing to know. So this is how the blank form looks like. So if you have received a form at your home address, then already the BSN number, so the social security number, and the name of your child and the date of birth, they will already have been pre-printed on the form. So it's easier for you to fill out the form in that case. If you use the blank form, and they have an awful long link that leads to that form, but if you click on it, you will get these 2 pages. So you can also fill this out, but then you have to provide proof of your child's date of birth. So that can be a passport or identity card, and also of your address. So that can be your rental contract or purchase contract, or maybe your water bill or something official that shows your address. If you don't provide proof of address, then they will just put you in a system like no priority for any school. So then your chances are really small. So you fill out this form and you bring that to the first school of your liking. And here on this, in this box, you list at least 5 schools, but it may be up to 10 if you want to. And you rank them in order of your preference. So the school you like best, you rank at number 1, and so on. Yeah, officially, you have to hand the form in person to the first school of your preference. Because of the corona measures, adults are not allowed in the schools anymore. So now it's better to email the form to the school and then ask for confirmation that they have received it, or you put it in the mailbox of the school. So don't try and enter the school with your form, because they will not be happy with that. They're really strict now, and they have to be. So maybe your Dutch is not that good yet. So we'll walk through the other items on the form. So here it asks for your BSN number. Is your child a boy, so jongen, or girl, meisje? Hier voornaam is first name, achternaam is last name. This is your address, so remember to submit proof of your address as well. So that's the street name and your house number, your postcode, the city where you live, and the date of birth of your child. And you have to prove that as well. Then these are the details of the parent. So is it Mr., Mrs., or family? So you have to circle the one that's applicable. 4 letters. I've noticed a lot of internationals, they make a mistake in what 4 letters means. So they mean the first letter of your first name and second name and third name, if applicable, not of your last name. So only of your first names. And it's very common for Dutch people to have 2 or 3 names, so you put all those first letters. Then your last name, phone number of one parent, maybe you want to add a phone number of the second parent, and the same with the email address. In case your child lives at a different address, then you should add the address of the parent here. If it's the same address, then you leave this blank. Here they tell you where you can find the BSN number, so maybe in the passport or identity card or the birth certificate of the child, or the registration form from the municipality, or your health insurance card. So there's different options where you can find a BSN number. Without BSN number, they cannot register your child at the school. So that's very important to put that on the form. This section asks about the priority criteria. So it says, at the moment that your child turns 4, if there's an older brother or sister already attending the school. If yes, you tick this box and you add here the name of the brother and sister and the BSN of the brother or sister. You still have to fill out this form. So even if an older child already attends the school, but in that case, you only put the name of that particular school at number 1. You don't need to take part in the lottery. You don't need to rank other schools on your list, but you still have to bring the form to the school. Otherwise, they don't know that your child wants to go to the same school as their older sibling. Most parents send both or all children of the family to the same school, but that it's not obligatory. So maybe you decide for a different school for your younger child. That's fine, but so you have to tell the school if your younger child will attend or not. Then this box you should tick if your child has a VVE indication, plus has attended the connected preschool, and you need to have this particular school that you put at number 1 as a priority school. And if that is all the case, then you can tick this box, and you also have to provide the certificate from the VVE indication. Otherwise, they cannot count it as priority criteria for you. Some schools, they are part of IKC, they call it. That means internal childcare center. So they have internal preschool, daycare, primary school, after school care, and they usually take place at the same building. So if that is the case, at the bottom of the form, you can find which of the IKCs do apply. And if your child has attended this connected preschool that is part of the IKC for 8 months at least, and for at least twice per week, then you can tick this box, and then your child will get priority as well. For children of staff who works at that particular school, their children get priority also. So for most parents, they cannot tick any box, so they have to take part in the lottery. So here you list at least 5 schools of your preference. It's very important to list at least 5 schools. The computer will first try your first school of preference. If there's no place there, they will automatically look at your second school. If there's no place at your third school, and so on. So you will only end up at number 5 is in case number 1 to 4 are not available anymore. Some cases, it has happened in the past that the children didn't end up at any school on the list. That can happen if you only list very popular schools. So if your number 1 school is full and then the computer looks at your number 2 school, but that had already been full for children who put that school at number 1, yeah, in that case you will go down your list very quickly. So it's very important to know how popular is the school, how many applications have they already received, and what are my chances here. So there is a website of the BBO, I will send it later in the follow-up email, where you can find the lottery results of the past lotteries, but that they don't offer any guarantee for the current lottery. It just gives you some idea about what happened in the past. So it can happen that you don't get any school at all that you have listed. That's of course very painful. What happens then is that the municipality will provide you with a list of schools that still have a place. They're usually not the most popular schools, or maybe they're further away from your house than you'd hoped for. And you should pick one of those schools of that list. But you will stay on top of the list of your first school of preference. So in case a place opens up at that school, then they will call you and maybe still give that school place to you. That can be after a week or maybe after a few months. So that's a very insecure position, but it can happen. There's also a lot of parents in Amsterdam South who apply for both a central school and an eenpitter school, and maybe they get a place through both lotteries. And then they have to choose the school they like best and then cancel their place at the other school again. So it's a bit cumbersome, but in the end, you can choose between 2 schools that were on top of your list. So when you hand in the form and the lottery takes place, then within 2 weeks after the lottery, you will get a confirmation from the school, usually by email, but sometimes by regular post. And they will tell you at which school your child will have a place. And then they give you 2 weeks to confirm your spot at that school. So if you don't confirm in time, they will give your place to another child. So that's very important to officially tell the school, yes, I accept this place. So make sure you keep an eye on your email. And if you don't receive anything, check your mailbox. And then if you haven't heard after 2 weeks, then contact the school and ask them what happened. For about 4 weeks after the lottery deadline, the schools will know better if people have cancelled their spot again, maybe because they chose for an eenpitter school instead, or maybe something else happened that they changed their mind. So if you didn't get a place at your first school of preference, 4 weeks after the lottery is a good time to call the school and ask, hey, I was very interested in your school. I put your school at number 1. I didn't get a place. Has anything changed? Could I maybe take that spot if it has opened up in the meantime? So you should actively stay in touch with the school. So that is another important thing to note when you don't get a place at the school you had hoped for. So in the end, it can take a while, but in the end, most children do get a place at one of their preferred spots. So it's good to know that the algorithm behind the lottery, they try and place as many children in the top 3 as possible. So in the past lotteries, they placed about 97% in the top 3 and about 90% in the top 1. But it can vary per lottery. But that is what they're aiming for. So your chances are pretty good, but yeah, no guarantee there, unfortunately. Where it says aanvullende opmerking, you can put down any additional comments. Maybe if you use the blank form, then you could say we haven't received the pre-printed form because we have just moved to Amsterdam, or we have just moved house and the form we received was sent to our old address or something like that. But you can also leave it blank if you have nothing special to say. It doesn't matter really. And then you put the date when you fill out a form, the name of the parent who's filling it out, your signature, and you declare that you have answered all the questions truthfully. So if you email this form or if you put it in the mailbox, so don't forget to add a proof of address and proof of date of birth. That's very important. So you should add a copy of the details that they need. Doesn't need to be the whole purchase contract, but just where it shows the address. Now, these are the Eenpitter schools that we talked about. So remember, these schools have their own lottery. So they're marked in gray on this Schoolwijzer website. So you shouldn't rank these schools on your central school list. There are 13 schools that are Eenpitter, so they don't take part in the central lottery. And most of them are in Amsterdam South. So for example, the AMS, the Amsterdamse Montessori School, you have 2 open air schools, the first and the second one. The Waldorf schools, Willems Park is one. And then in the center there is ASFO. In West it's also a Waldorf school, and in North is also a Waldorf school. Hildebrand van Loon, close to Museumplein. And then there is another Eenpitter school, they're called Cornelis Vrij, they're also close to Museumplein, and they again have their own lottery, so they have a different form, and their application date is in September, so they only have one lottery, only for their school per year. So in the end, if you want, you could apply for 3 lotteries at the same time. So it's a bit confusing maybe. So these schools, they have also their own catchment area, so you have to go to the website of your interest, and then they have marked the area. So like this is the Amsterdamse Montessori, so you have to live in this area in order to have priority for this school. Some schools have a wide area, some very narrow, so it really depends on how they establish their own criteria. And in most cases, it's pretty difficult to get a place at the Eenpitter school. So you really have to be lucky to get a place. They do ask you to also rank number 1, 2, and 3, but in reality, chances are very small you will get a place at number 2 or lower. But yeah, you can still put some schools on your list if you want to. If you live outside of their catchment area, it's even more difficult to get a place. You can always try, but don't hold your breath. So on the Schoolwijzer website, you can see exactly which schools take part in the Eenpitter lottery. So everything is different for the Eenpitter schools. So on the website, they say in red, this school does not participate in the application procedure. They mean in the central procedure. Hopefully that is clear now, because it is a bit confusing. After the school has confirmed where you get a place, so you will get an email or a normal mail from the school where you got the place. So hopefully that's the one where you submitted your form, but not necessarily. And then they will invite you for an intake meeting, usually about 4 weeks before the start. Most children, they start school the day after their 4th birthday, so they start throughout the year. So that's also another thing that is different from most other countries. So about 1 month before your child's 4th birthday, you will get the invitation from the school to meet the teacher and to talk things through. And then you will also have to fill out the registration form. So after your application, they will reserve your spot at school, but they need more information from you that you will have to fill out before you can start. Most of the times that form is in Dutch, so yeah, make sure you either you get help or you find a way to translate that if your Dutch is not good enough. I have also set up some services to help with forms or other communication you get from the school in Dutch. And then you prepare your child for their first day of school. So in most cases, the children start for the first week only in the mornings to really get used to everything. It depends a bit on the child how fast that goes, but some schools, they reserve 2 weeks for this. Others say, okay, your child is doing fine, and after a few days, they can already go full time. So it really depends on the situation. So make sure to reserve some room in your agenda that you can pick your child up at noon in the first week at least. In the Dutch system, they really look at the child individually. So they really see, okay, child is ready to go for full days, or they need more time to adjust, or maybe they're so tired. Just keep your child at home on Wednesdays or Friday afternoon and just ease in slowly. So it really depends on the situation. Also, this is very different from most other countries. So I've made a doodly video in which you can see how it works. I won't play it now, it takes about 7 minutes, but when I send a recording, you can click on the link and then I will explain how that process works and how you can prepare your child for the first big day of school. I can imagine that you still have other questions. I'll check the Q&A as well. So remember the question mark on top of in the right corner. If you click on there, you can write your questions. What kind of school would be most suitable? Yeah, that's a really personal question. It really depends on what kind of philosophy suits you best. The distance from home to school is very important. Some schools, they focus on languages or technology or music or theater or drama. So yeah, it really depends on what you are looking for, what you find important. So it's very hard to say, oh, this would be the best school for you. If you need more information about specific schools, then I welcome you to book a service with me so I can explain how everything works. Yeah, so I'll send you more information about that in the follow-up email as well. Other questions for the Cornelis Vrij School I mentioned. So that is the one that has their own form. Their lottery deadline was in September past year, so 2019, for the children who were born in 2017. So that is too late now, unfortunately. You can still try and apply there. They are one of the few schools that do have a waiting list, so in case other children cancel their spot, then maybe you could have a chance there. So if that's what you're interested in, then you could try. They draw a circle of 800 meters around their school, and first they let children in who live within those 800 meters. And then if there's still places available, then they expand their circle. So you really have to live close to the school to have a chance of getting a place there. And so they have their own procedure. So the other schools, they just draw a square, or the central schools have a priority school or not. Cornelis Vrij is a bit different, that they really look at the distance. And then ASFO, they are different again. They really count the steps from door to door, and the child who lives closest by, so the smallest number of steps, they have the highest chances of getting in. So for the Eenpitter schools, you really have to understand what their criteria are. Yeah, so I'll send a link to the services, how I can help you further. You can also look at my website, new2nl.com. And in the family section, you can find all services that are offered. So it varies from video call, that we talk about the schools of your interest, or the all-inclusive package that I also help you with the application form. I will contact the schools and ask how much place they still have. I'll write a report about the schools of your interest, so you can really compare and understand which school is which and what do they do and what are their unique selling points and so on. So you can really compare them thoroughly. I also help with translating the communication of the school. I can accompany you on school visit. Unfortunately, at this time, the schools don't really allow to visit the school. If you haven't seen a school yet, I can imagine it's very difficult then to make a decision if you like it or not. So I would really recommend you to contact the school and ask if you could visit. Maybe they could make an exception for you for a short tour after school hours so that they just quickly show you the building. It's a bit more difficult to get an impression when the children are not there, but no one can do anything about that situation at this moment. Some schools, they give a virtual tour, or maybe you can book a Skype call with the principal. So it really depends on the school how they have arranged those things. So now I cannot accompany you, unfortunately, but hopefully in the near future I can. So that's another service. So just see what you need and I can accommodate that. New questions. You only need to provide the proof in case you're using the blank form. Because if you received a pre-printed form from the municipality, your address will already be pre-printed and then you don't need to prove that anymore because that is what comes directly from the administration of the municipality. Or maybe you have moved house after you received the form. So then you can correct your address, but you have to prove that as well, that you indeed moved. It can also be that you already have a new address, but you don't live there yet. So in that case, you should apply for the schools close to your new house and then provide proof that you will move there eventually. So that in that case, it's very important that it says, okay, the rent will start from August, so that they know that when your child starts school, you will live in the priority area. So if you haven't moved and your address is still correct, then you can just submit a form like that and you don't need to provide any proof. Then another question, so yeah, if only one parent needs to sign a form or both parents, one parent is enough, but in case of parents who are separated or divorced and they are co-parenting, in that situation, both parents should sign. When the next lottery deadlines are, so there are 3 lotteries per year. So they go by age category. So you can only take part in 1 lottery. So the next one will be in November, and that is meant for children who turn 4 in the 3 months after. So from who were born in 2017, in May, June and July. August probably as well. Yeah. And then the next deadline is in March. So it's always March, June, November. But when you type in your address and the date of birth of your child, you will see exactly when the deadline is. So that's important to know, because if you have missed the lottery deadline, then most schools will already be full. And in that case, it will be very hard to find a school place. So you have to call all the schools one by one and ask, do you still have availability? And in many cases, they will say no. So keep on trying, because maybe parents change their mind. Maybe they move house in the meantime between the lottery and the start of school. Maybe parents applied for both the Eenpitter and the Central Lottery. So still try, but it will be more difficult in that case. Yeah, and then about the visiting options, I think I already answered that. So ask the school personally what the options are. So some schools, they have been a bit quicker to react with online tours, and others just held off everything. In most schools also don't allow parents on the playground anymore, so you really have to stand behind a fence, so it's difficult to get an impression. But it's always good to to go to school at pickup time, and yeah, ask the parents that you see what they think of the school. Of course, now you have to keep a safe distance as well, so yeah, don't overwhelm them. It's a bit more difficult than usual. But always ask the parents, would you recommend that school to my family? Because maybe they are Dutch and for them it's a nice school, but if they don't have any international families, maybe it's not the best school for your family. Or maybe they like it very much because they're a lot into drama, but you don't care so much for drama, so then maybe it's not a good school for you. So always ask them, why do you like it? Or why are you not too happy? And would you recommend it to my family? That's a very important question. Yeah, usually I tell parents, when you go to school at pickup time, you also can observe how the teachers interact with the students, how the students interact with each other, how do the parents and teachers interact with each other. But now they really have to create a distance. The children, they come out of school at separated times, so they're not all together. The parents are not allowed in school. They're asked to wait at a distance for their children, and the older children, they can go home by themselves if it's a safe route. So yeah, it's a bit different now. It's harder to get a good impression. You can also ask questions at the Dutch Education Group on Facebook. There's a lot of parents who have children in Dutch schools in Amsterdam, and just ask what they would recommend. So there's still ways to get your information about the schools if you haven't seen them yet. Yeah, another question about how to hand in the form. I did already mention that, but maybe you've missed it. That's okay. So either by email or in a mailbox, and then ask for a confirmation by email that they've received it. So don't try and go into the school at this point. That's not allowed. And then a question where you can find the past lottery results. I will send you the link to the BBO website. So the BBO is the umbrella organization of the school board, so they keep track of all the school lotteries in the past, and they distinguish children who had at school at number 1, and well, it was a priority school, and they also list if they still had places available for children who live outside of the priority area. So if it says only, for example, 80% of the children who had at school at number 1 and lived in the priority area got a place, then it doesn't make much sense to list that school when you don't live in a priority area. So that decides a bit your strategy, but again, it doesn't really guarantee that this round will be the same. Question, yeah, so if you really like a school, but that's not in your priority area, if you could still list it. So that really depends on the past lotteries. If you decide to list a school, you should list it at number 1, because if it's lower on your list, it's almost zero chance that you will get a place there. So in that case, it's a bit of a waste of space, and then you should list another school instead. So you may list a school that is outside of your priority area, but you have to take into consideration that the children who live closer by, so for whom this school is a blue school, that they go first in the lottery. But some schools, they have about 5 groups 1 and 2. And in that case, they have more places on offer compared to a smaller school that maybe only has 1 group 1 and 2. So most schools, they combine group 1 and 2 in the same class. You apply for group 1. That's where 4-year-olds go to. But it's usually about, most classes are about 28 to 30 children. And then if they combine group 1 and 2, it's only half of the class. That's group 1. So it fills up quickly in that sense. So it's always good to know how many places they have already given to siblings, how many children with a VV indication need a place, and how many application forms they have already received. And then you can understand a little bit what your chances are. The school will not tell you exactly this is what your chances are, but you can do the math. About Haarlem. Haarlem is one of the few places that also has a lottery since a year or so. They copied a lot of things from Amsterdam. Yeah, you have to look on the website of the municipality of Haarlem to understand how it works there. It has the same principle. Based on your postcode, you have priority for the schools in your area. And there's also 3 lotteries per year. So the idea is the same. Yeah, what if you move house after the lottery? Yeah, that is a difficult situation. So if you already know now that you will move and you can already prove your future address, then you could take part in the lottery based on your new address. If this is not the case, you take part in the lottery based on your current address. Then you will get a school that is close to your current house, and you can decide to stay at that school. So it's not when you move house that you also have to move school, but it of course depends on the distance and if it's feasible to go to that school from your new address. So you may, if you can take the distance. You can also try and apply for schools that are close to your new address, but then, like I said before, they are very likely to be full. So keep on trying. Maybe you're lucky, or maybe, yeah, you will have to start your child at the school close to your current address, and then you can switch at a later time. So you can always change schools. It's not always in the benefit of the child, but it really depends on your situation. So always ask the school first if they have availability, and if not, then keep on trying or try and find another school instead. So no school is obliged to take your children. Some people think that when the school is close to your house, that the school has to take your child. That is not the case. So it really depends on their availability. So if you can, try and apply for a school that's close to your future address, if you can already prove it. And if not, hopefully you will manage to find a school nearby your new house. It's not the easiest situation, though. I believe there are no questions anymore at this point, so I'll close this webinar now. Thank you for watching. I hope the lottery procedure has become more clear to you. If you have any questions later on, then please send me an email. So that is at annebet@newtnl.com. On my website, you can find a lot more links to videos in which I explain how other things work that are related to education. So I hope you will be lucky in the lottery, that you will get a place at the first school of your preference. So I already have my fingers crossed. Make sure you send in the form before the 3rd of June. You have to wait about 2 weeks and hope for the best. So take care, stay healthy, and hope to see you soon. Bye bye.